Okay, so we're COMP305, Week 6, Lesson 6, Part 1. We're doing our broadcast, and we're also recording at the same time. Let's see how much wear and tear this has on my processor today, right? As we're doing both things at once. Okay, where last we left off, we were working on this platformer example, and I had done some, let's go into this. You should have a GitHub. I'm going to pull up GitHub for a second. So if I go to GitHub, and if I go to Centennial College, which is the repo, the home repo, there is a COMP305 2D platformer demo section 1 that I'm going to be starting from you guys, right? I did section 2 earlier today, but section 1 is the repo you should be using because that's the one that I'm going to be starting from today, okay? So section 1. Centennial College, COMP305 2D platformer demo section 1, okay. So when you grab that, what we've done up until now is the following. If I was to run this thing, you get this, right? So he drops down, there's a bit of gravity, and you notice this platform is different color than this morning for people who are watching this again. And right now, I mean, I can't do any movement. There's no movement for this dude at all, right? I got a bit of a platformer. I got the player object. Again, I could have called him hero. I think I did call him hero in the other iteration. One thing to note is we were talking about our platform, our quad. Let's rename this thing as platform because we're going to make it as, we're going to call it platform, right? So here's our platform, which is our quad, right? And one thing to note is that we also have a rigid body 2D, right? And if you notice what they talk about here, they say, well, you don't need, if you're freezing everything, if you're freezing position and you're freezing rotation and you're freezing everything, do you really need a rigid body 2D? Well, let me show you if I don't freeze rotation, what happens. Let's just take rotation, the constraint off of rotation, and press play, right? So if I kind of collide, then everything's good, right? But what if, and this is just me, right? What if I go back to the scene and I focus on the player, I'm going to use the F, right, to focus on his frames, zoom out a little bit, and then use the selector tool to kind of move him to the side, right? So instead of going to the middle, I'm going to go to one side of the platform. Let's see what happens now when I hit the platform, right? So okay, everything else is happening, and then bye-bye. Now, it looks like the player flew up in the air, but actually, that didn't happen. Let me show you, because the main camera is paired to the player right now. Let me just take that main camera and put it on its own. Okay, and the main camera is by itself now. And if you notice, if I was going to scroll out to see what the main camera looks like, there it is, right? And the player is centered around the main camera right now, because that's how it was before. But what I want to do is bring this main camera down just a touch. So it's going to kind of come to here so you can actually see the platform. Right, so there's the main camera there. If I press play, right, I get this, right, boom, and then it rotates all around because I've unlocked, right, what's happened, right? So the reason why it's going on like that is because I have attached a 2D, a rigid body 2D to the platform. So the platform itself has the transform component. It also has a quad, a mesh renderer, and a rigid body 2D. Well, rigid body 2D, what it does is it acts on gravity, right? But do I really want my platform, which is going to be the main thing of our game, to act on gravity? And for now, what I want to say is no. So there's a couple ways to do that. The question is, do I need a rigid body 2D at all, right? And if I didn't have it, would I still collide? Well, all I need is a collider. If I have a collider, I don't really need the rigid body 2D on the platform. So let's get rid of that. So I'm just going to go to rigid body 2D on the platform and click remove component, right? Now when I do that, and if I land on it, even though I'm landing on its corner, I'm nice and stable. Okay, makes sense? So, and again, the reason why I was able to do that was because, you know, I've removed the rigid body 2D. Rigid body 2D, when you add that as a component to your game object, it adds physics 2D capabilities to your object. You don't want physics on your component if it's a platform, unless that's the way your platforms react. If that's the kind of game you make. If you want physics to react on your platforms, all the power to you. For me, for my game, the answer is no. I don't want that, so I'm not going to have that. All right, so let's just stop debugging here for a second. There's my camera. Let's do a couple things. My main camera is at a weird position, -1, -4. I'm just going to reset it. Other than my my Z component, I'm going to make this 0, 0 just to make sure that my camera is in the 0 position, right? My character looks like he's off screen right now. That's okay. I'm going to kind of move this down So he's on the screen. And I'm going to just reset my platform so that's also lower down in the scene. If I press play again, here he is. I'm going to make my platform just a little bigger. I noticed this morning when I was doing this or this afternoon, early afternoon when I was doing this thing, I noticed that I need my platform just to be a bit larger. So I'm just going to make it a bit larger today. And then press play. There it is. All right. So this is all good. I've got my hero falling, right? And I called my hero this morning hero. So let's do that. Let's click on my player. Just to be the same as the first group, I'll call my player hero. This is what my player's name is, by the way. He's the hero. So I did a couple things. I cut up a bunch of these sprites before. Like if I look at, for example, my coin sprite, right? My coin sprite seems to be, there's a bunch of additional information here that I've got. My coin 1, coin 2, coin 3, and so on. And I also have this thing, coin NT, coint, which also has just this, right? This uncut up sprite. There it is, right? And if I look at my sprite sheet, it says single, right? What I want to do is I want to change this in my sprite sheet. This is the whole sprite sheet for the coin. I want to change my sprite sheet from single, right, to multiple. And I also want to change my pixels per unit, like we did before, to 1. Right? Because I want my pixels per unit to be is a pixel perfect game we're making. We also changed our filter mode for those people who haven't done this before to point filter mode. All right? And I'm going to apply my changes. Okay. So now I've got multiple sprites. But what I want to do, right, because I want to use my codeinweb.com texture packer. Remember we talked about texture packer last week, right? I want to re-import all of my assets, right, with texture packer. Before I do that, I might as well make sure the enemy is already packed up like that. So here's my enemy. I noticed that. I don't know why these things are coming. Multiple. I want to make this multiple. Change this pixels per unit to 1. Change my bilinear to point, right? I'm going to do that there and apply everything there. That's for my enemy. I got my hero, my enemy, my coin, I just did, sorry, and my hero. Might as well do that one. Here's my hero. You notice there's like lots and lots of sprites. I've kind of got it separated, but I also have a hero sprite sheet, and I want to sprite mode multiple, and my pixels per unit, right, is 1. This is good, and it's already bilinear, right? Or sorry, point to point. I'm also going to do, I've already kind of split these up, right? So if you notice when I go into these, we kind of, these are all singles, right? Single, single, single. But what I want to do is I want to change these to multiple. So I want to go to multiple, make these 1, change from bilinear to point. And same thing, I'll apply that one. Same thing with these ones. So change them all to multiple. Pixel per unit 1, point, apply. We want to do this because we need some of these assets, and I'm going to probably give you some other ones later. So pixel per unit 1, multiple, and bilinear to points. This is stuff that they already had in the other class, but we're going to just do it again. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to right-click, and what I want to re-import all. So click re-import all. So right-click here in your assets or tiles, and I want to re-import all, right? And when I do that, what it's going to do is says, are you sure? And I'm going to say, absolutely. Re-import everything and save. And it's re-importing everything, as you can see. Okay, good. Now here's the changes. Because I have Texture Packer working, even if you don't have Texture Packer, I've given you your sprite sheet, right? So if I go back to sprites, and if I go back to coin, and I look at coin int now, it has all the coin sprites underneath it. It's been already cut up. Let me look at the Sprite Editor and show you this. See how the sprite sheet has already been cut up because I used the Texture Packer importer script right from the Asset Manager, right? The Asset Store, right? And I showed you that last week. Well, I kind of included this codeinweb.com Texture Packer importer, and I'm using Texture Packer because I told you that's kind of the easier way to do it. So I don't need some of these sprites. So for example, if I go into my coin, I don't need all these other coins because I got them all in here into my coin sprite sheet, right? So I'm just going to get rid of them. So I'm going to go just right here, get rid of all these coins, and delete. And now in my coin, I'm just going to rename this thing to coin with a C. There we go. So there's my coin sprite sheet, right? I'm going to do the same thing with enemy. So here's my idle. If you look at enemy, enemy's all cut up too now, right? So I'm going to take my idle and all the walk animation and everything else and just delete that too. And I cut my sprites down to just a sprite sheet now. Look, right? Because I can do that because I re-imported everything. My hero, same thing. Get rid of all this. These are just individual sprites, and I don't want to use individual sprites. I want to use a sprite sheet for better performance, right? So get rid of all that. And now my hero has all the sprites embedded inside my hero sprite sheet. I did that by using codedweb.com texture packer importer, right? So here's my tiles. Now this is something we haven't done. This is something that I got to do again, right? So one thing I need to do here for these blocks is in my Sprite Editor, what I've got to do is I've got to slice all these blocks up, right? This is a typical tile map that you get with your little package, right? So I'm going to choose slice, and instead of automatic, I'm going to choose grid by cell count, right? Oh, let's do by, sorry, let's try this again. Well, I could do that, but by size is a little better. So the pixel size is 32 by 32, I know that. I got an offset of 2, 2, 2, and 2. Trust me, I've done this before, and slice. And everything goes well. I've got my assets sliced up here, right? These are each individual ones now, each individual tiles. One thing is of an announcement, I got to say that there's a couple things I've been exploring, and one of the things, if you actually look at the keynote for Unite Boston 2015, they talked about version 5.3 of Unity coming out this December, right? I believe it's coming out the same day as Star Wars 7, right? December 18th, right? So if you're into Star Wars. And then by the time they get to Unity 5.4, which is next March 2016, right? It should have built-in tools for platformers, built-in tools for things like tile maps, all that stuff built in, as opposed to doing it all manually like we got to do now, right? So even things like tile map, texture drawing, and all that kind of stuff, it will all be built into Unity by then. So I'm really looking forward to that version. But for now, what we got to do is do what I'm doing right here is cut up all the tile maps, right? So that's one. I cut up this tile map, and I've got to click apply to do that. So I click apply. Kind of close that off. Go to my, and if you notice now under the blocks, I have all these kind of blocks. All I'm doing is, another way of doing it is when you don't use texture packer, you can use the built-in Sprite Editor, right? So here's my blocks again, and if you notice my sprite sheet looks like this, right on the right-hand side here. But I want to cut it up, right? Because right now it shows multiple, but none of them are cut up. If I go Sprite Editor, this is what my Sprite Editor looks like, right? And I want to do the same trick. So I'm going to go slice. I know they're 32 by 32, and they've got an offset and padding of 2 and 2 each. So I'm going to click slice. Now they're all sliced up. And I want to click apply. And when I do that, Unity slices them up nicely, right? Okay, so those are the blocks. So there's different backgrounds. I'm going to rename these things in a second. This is the last one I'm going to do, right? It's also, I can also cut this up, but this is not 64 by 6, or sorry, 32 by 32. There's 64 by 64 blocks, and there's no offset. If you notice, their offset is minimal, 0, right? I could do it in this case because it's exactly even. I could say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows by 1, 2, 3 columns. So I can do it that way this time. So instead of grid by cell size, I can go grid by cell count, and I can choose how many rows and columns with no offset. So I can say 0, 0, 0, no offset, and then I know that my rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 5 rows by 3 columns, and slice. Right, so that's also a way of doing it. And now that I've sliced it up, this one is one big one, or I can make them 3 separate ones, which is probably what they wanted us to do. They probably wanted us to make 3 separate ones, like this. I'm okay with this. Let's leave it as is. And then apply. When I do that, I can go back, and if you notice now I've got 3 different assets for tiles. I'm going to call this, by the way, I can open it in Fireworks. I just double-click by accident. This is what it actually looks like in Fireworks. So this is actually the editor that I like to use. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to rename this thing. So I'm just going to click once and rename this thing to background 1. And I'll name this background 2. and I could have called it tileset 1, tileset 2, and this background 3. So I've got three backgrounds I can use, different tilesets if I want, and I've got another one too. I've got other ones that I can use as well. Okay, so these are our tile sets. We've got some good sprites here. I'm going to save my application. Right now, what I've got going on, I've got no other scripts. One thing I do want to check if I go back to game is, hey, where's my main hero, right? Well, my main hero is a problem because I took away his sprite, so I killed his sprite. Well, now what I can do is I can go back to sprites hero, and I can look at the first hero idle sprite, and I can drag and drop it from here, the sprite sheet now, into his sprite renderer, right? And now he's got a bit of shape again. Things to note, I got to make sure that he appears properly. So I'm going to kind of scroll out here and scene, and he's massive, right? How come he's so massive? How come? Because I'm making it 1-to-1, right? My hero is 1-to-1, right? That's what I've asked him to do. So if you look at the hero sprite, and all of the sub sprites here, as an example, is a 1-per-1 unit basis. My camera, however, right, when I look at it's even orthographic, but my size is wrong. Its size is 5, which is the built-in size. I know that I probably want to make it something like 240, right? And now, because I just know that from last time when we did our other game, we make it if we want to make this 640 by 480, if I go back to game, you notice I picked 640 by 480. I want to make it half the height. Okay, so 240 is half the height, and so you see my character is nicely right here. Well, we have our platform, but that's really small, so I need to scale this way up in order for us to see it. So I'm going to go back to scene, and I'm going to click scale, and I'm going to just scale this thing way up, so that it makes sense, so that you can actually see this thing. There we go, maybe a little bit bigger than that. It's our quad, right? And just pull this down so that it's underneath it. If I scroll out, that's the scene. Let's make it even bigger, and I'll give you the size, but you can do it manually for now because we're going to be modifying this thing to death anyway. So I want the scale is going to be like, let's say from the X size, like 300 pixels, and maybe a size of like 50 pixels. Right? So that's what that is, because the scale is 1-to-1, right? All right, so save. And let's make sure that things are working out like they were before. And you're going to notice an immediate problem, right? Let's try running the game now, right? And how come he's falling so slow? Anybody? It's falling really slow. Oh, it even like went down here. How come? Well, there's a couple of reasons. This is kind of some problems, right? It's a quad. And if I look at the box collider has to be set properly. So let's just go in here. And the box collider looks like it's been resized, but what about my Heroes collider? That's the problem. I know that I added a collider, but it's really small, right? So what I need to do now is, because I made my collider a box collider, and it's really, really small, I think what I'd rather do, I'm just going to just remove my component here, is add another kind of collider to the hero. I'm going to make it so that we're going to add a physics 2D. We'll make it a box collider as well, right? But now if you notice, it's just nice, right? Now box collider for us for now is okay. We may choose to make this a polygon collider later on. If we were to do that later on, the challenge with making it a polygon collider now is it's heavy duty for the game. Let's just try it now and see what happens. So he's falling. Let's look at the scene, and as you can see, here's the outline for his boundary. And I may need to tighten this up a little bit because you see that the hero's head is here, and then the hair is counting as part of the collider. That makes no sense. So I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the hero, and I'm going to click Edit Collider, and I'm just going to drag this one in so it's hugging the character as much as possible, like right up to his face. And if you really want to be accurate, you can go right in, and you can see how close he's going to get. The other thing is, like, do I really want him to collide to his hat or his head? I even think we can probably go closer, like up to here. Right? Don't want to do too close though. There's going to be reasons for that, but that's probably pretty good, right? Let's check that out. See how it goes. Now he's moving really slow. Why is he moving really slow? Because our scale for our gravity is based on the regular scale. We've done pixel perfect collisions, and now it's trying to do 9.8 meters per second right? Because that's the flow of gravity. And let me just show you this. I showed them in the morning. If I go to Edit, Project Settings, and I go to Physics 2D, right? You can see that default up here is minus 9.81 meters per second, right? That's what it's doing. I could certainly increase this speed to something else. Like, example would be minus 200, minus 300. Let's see minus 300 what it does, right? And if I was to scroll out again, and if I press play, then now he's falling at minus 300, and it seems to be still quite slow, right? If I go back again, and I change this to minus 1000, right? That's pretty fast. You might say like 1,000 pixels per frame, right? Bam. Now you can see there's a bit of a bounce. There's a bit of a bounce up there. And if you look at, if I kind of zoom in on him, right, so I'm clicking on him, and I'm going to just use frame select to move in. And if I drop him here in the scene mode, you can see how he drops down, and he goes almost below the scene. If I drop him high enough up, and he goes down, he actually falls underneath the scene and bounces back up. Why? Because of his speed. He's falling really, really fast. So that's one way we can do it. But there's some issues when doing that. When I change my gravity for the entire game, that can cause issues. It affects everything in the game. The entire game is scaled that way. So maybe what we want to do here for today is not do that. Go back to Edit, Project Settings, Input, and put this back, Edit, Project Settings, Physics 2D, and put this back to where it was, which is minus 9.81. And instead, go to the character and change his gravity scale to like 200. Now remember that when I do this, right, there's advantages and disadvantages here. I'm telling the character that, you know, he's going to fall. Let me try this out now. Boom, that's much better, right? So now if I go back to the scene, it's got the same capabilities. He still goes and rises down and up, but it's so fast, for the most part, you won't see it. Okay? So that's the, I've changed his gravity scale to 200. Okay. All right, this is a good stopping place for me before I move on. I'm not going to stop recording or stop the, take a break. I'm doing this as a stopping place because I think it's a great place to upload everything to GitHub. So if you haven't been able to follow along, and I'm going too fast, and I've made too many changes, right, and you want to catch up with me, you can certainly do that. And I'm going to save everything. First, I'm going to save my scene. So I'm going to File, Save Scene, and then I'm going to File, Save Project. And if you're working with somebody else and you're having trouble with GitHub, the best thing to do before you do GitHub is get out of Unity, right? Because Unity locks some files down, right? So I'm going to go Unity, quit. So I'm out of Unity now. I'll wait till it's done. And then I'm going to go into command line. I'm going to use command line GitHub. And I'm going to go CD into my desktop, into Unity projects, and then inside there find the my project, which is COMP305 2D Platformer Demo Section 1. And now I can go git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say something like re-imported assets, which is really what I did. Okay, and then git push origin master. All right, good. Now you guys are starting off where the other class starts off this afternoon, early afternoon. Okay, so now you guys have it. If you guys go up to GitHub, Centennial College Section 1, you'll have everything that I have. All my assets are up there. And just to show you that, if I go back to GitHub, actually I probably have it in another tab. Let me just close this up so I don't mess things up. Here it is. If I refresh, if you notice, I have in my assets, I have my sprites. In my sprites, I have my coin, and now in my coin, I've actually re-imported everything, and I only have my TPS file, which is from Texture Packer. I have my coin.ping file, which is the coin's sprite sheet, and I have that's it. That's all I have, right? And some metadata for Unity, which is important. So I've updated everything for you. The project is updated. If you want to, you can certainly fork me on GitHub. So it'll be your project is part of my project be part of yours, or you can certainly download it again, which is probably easier. You go here, right, and then you click on download zip, and you can download the zip file, and you can start working from there. All right, so I'm going to keep this up because I'm going to update GitHub later again, and let's open up Unity again with our project. So here we are for section 1. And now we're starting off pretty much where we started off this morning, right? Okay, so we've added the character, but one of the challenges we've had before is when we did an animation earlier, like for Male Pilot, we had to program the animation. But there's some built-in animation features that you can use with Unity that I'd like to show you. Let's create a coin sprite, and we're going to do that, our coin prefab. But in order for me to start that, I want to talk about using the coin, the actual coin sprite sheet. There's a couple things I can do. One thing is, I don't want to use the entire sprite sheet. I just want to use the part of the sprite sheet that's going to be doing the animating, which is this piece. So I'm going to right-click and Control Shift everything here, and I want to drag this whole piece, all of these, all at once. Follow me here because this is important if you guys to see this, right? I'm going to drag all these things here from the sprite sheet, right? Or you can, if you haven't imported my sprite sheet, you can certainly drag more than one sprite and then drag it. There's two possibilities: one into the hierarchy, or two, which is even easier, into the scene. So let's drag this into the scene here. There we go. She's in the scene now, right? Okay, cool. Let's play the scene and see what I get. Well, I get an immediate, kind of animation going on, right? So the animation's done, right? So how did that happen? What did I do? Right? Let's go back. So I'm going to just delete this thing. And it kind of did a couple things all at once, right? It kind of created these two extra files here in the coin folder, right? Created this coin clip and this coin animator. Now the animator is an animator controller that controls the animation states for the coin. So let's get rid of these. We'll do one more time so you can see it again, right? So I'm going to get rid of these things. And let's do this thing again. So I'm going to grab all the coins, do it with me, right? And drag this. This time I won't drag it into the scene. I'll drag it into my hierarchy. See what happens. Boom. Right? So it gets added in. And when I press play, right, I have the coin working just like that. Okay, cool. There's a couple things to note. I could, and I know I've seen videos and some people have asked questions like, why in the videos do they make the coin a separate game object that they add kind of a coin sprite to? Is there an advantage to that? And I mean, as I showed the class earlier today, the answer is there's no really advantage. It's just a matter of how you want to separate concerns. You want to separate the coin logic from the sprite sheet. You can do that, and you can make it so it's separate. There is really no advantage, right? It's just really about it. Well, it really depends. You can do things in many different ways here, and what I'm going to recommend to you is I wouldn't recommend doing that. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is, now that I've added my coin object, remember I'm going to create a prefab, so I'm going to rename this thing from coin01 to coin, right? So there it is. So my coin is in there. Now what do I also have? I also got not just this, but if you notice on the right hand side, I have a sprite renderer that I got, a component sprite renderer, and I also have an animator right here. This animator uses a controller called coin1. Well, that doesn't make any sense descriptively. Let's do a couple things from a project structure perspective. I'm going to go into assets, and I'm going to create some new folders. One of them is going to be a new folder that I want to call animation. So I'm going to kind of create an animation folder. In my animation folder, I want two folders, right? I'm going to create another folder in my animation folder called clips, right? Because I want to have various clips and video clips that I want to use, or animation clips, right? And I want to make another folder inside my animation folder called controllers. So clips and controllers. Let me make a uppercase. Controllers. Come on, Tom. And this is animation clips, right? That's what it would be. That's how you would read it. Animation clips, animation controllers, right? So my clips, right? I have a clip that I just created, right? When I did that drag and drop into the scene, right? I created a clip called coin01. Let's go there and take a look. So I go sprites. Here's my coin, and if you notice on the bottom there, there's coin01, and the clip looks like this play button here, right? Here's my clip. And there's also another one over here, coin01, coin and coin01. Coin01 is actually my animator controller, right? So let's rename these things. So I'm going to call this, right, my coin clip. And I'm going to drag this coin clip into my clips folder, so it's organized. And I'm also going to drag this controller, drag it the way it is into my controllers folder, right? And in my controllers folder, I'm just going to rename this thing to coin as well. So it's a coin controller. There we go. Okay, cool. So I got my coin controller, I got my coin clip. I just named them the same thing, but they're different things, right? And one thing to note is I have on the window, I have an animation window up here. We're going to get to that later on. But I also have a coin, and if I double click on my coin, I get another window called the Animator Window. So there's different windows we've been exploring. My scene window, the game window, the animation window, the Animator window, the console window, right? There's different windows. So let's look at this Animator window. I'm just going to change layouts for a second because I find this layout is good on big screens, but on small screens like this one, because of the resolution, it's not good. So I'm going to go to my default, and I'm going to, I've got a bunch of stuff I'm missing, right? I need my, just over here, I'm going to just reduce the size of my coin controller. I'm going to double click so you can see this thing a little better and just change my hierarchy just for now. I'm going to go back to that other view in a second. But this is a good view to look at for you guys who are remote. So there's a couple things here. If you notice, I have, what I'm looking at here is a state machine, okay? State machine. So here is the play state for my coin. My coin, when the clip starts, my coin starts to animate right away, right? And this animation is actually the clip that I've already recorded by dragging and dropping my coin sprite into my hierarchy. I record a clip. This is it right here. And if you notice, there's the motion, under motion, for this particular state. If you notice on the right-hand side, motion shows coin as my clip. I can make an empty state by right-clicking anywhere in my Animator background. So I'm going to right-click, create an empty state. Let's call this, you know, well, I don't know, whatever the new state is called. And sometimes what we want to do is if we have a complicated animation, like for example, the player animation is going to be much more complicated, right? It's going to have an idle state. It's going to have a run state or walk state, a jump state, maybe a crouch state, different states to do different things when you're playing. I need a transition, and the way you do a transition is you're going to click the state, right-click, make transition, and it'll draw an arrow from this state to the next. And I can do the same thing. I can make a transition back, so I can show that we can transition from one state to the next. Now we're going to get into this later on. But I wanted to show you that the Animator Controller, what it does is it controls the animation states of a clip, all right, or several clips for an object. So let's just delete this for now. But for now, what it does is what we've organized nicely. If I go back to my hierarchy, and I'm just going to switch modes again, so we don't need this window anymore. I'm going to go back to my lovely mode that I like, which is this. Okay, kind of scroll out again. And that's weird that it's like that. I'm going to my 640 by 480. There we go. So there we go. So if you notice on with this thing, when I have my coin, right, and when I play the clip here, when I start playing, when I start debugging, my coin is automatically going. Okay, let's check the scale to make sure that these are all correct. So again, if I click on my player object in the scene, here's my player, my hero. I noticed that my scale is 2, and I knew there was a problem when I looked at him. I'm like, how come my hero's so big and my coin is so small? That's not right, right? So I'm going to change my scale for my hero to 1 and 1, right? Change that back. So I realized I was looking at it going, something's wrong, right? Let's just try that again. Boom, right? And he just kind of sunk into the floor there for a second. Let's try that again. Woohoo! Okay, he's back down. But here's the problem. What if I land my hero? So I'm going to try and get my hero and put him on top of the coin. What's going to happen? Does the coin, here's the question, can the coin have any physics right now? No. I need to add what? Rigid body 2D, right? So let's do that. Let's add a rigid body 2D to my coin, right? And again, remember, we're making a new prefab. So this is we're on the road to making a prefab, right? And we're building it up, okay? So let's add a rigid body 2D. So we're going to go physics 2D, rigid body 2D. That's the first thing we need to add in. Okay, next thing we need. I need to add in a couple things here. One of them is going to be some kind of collider, right? Now, what really would work well here is a circle collider, right? So if I kind of zoom into the coin, you notice it's a little bit offset right now, right? And the reason for that is because when I look at the sprite render, the default sprite is coin 01. Coin 01 has already started its animation rotation, right? So it looks like it's not really rotating. It looks like it's rotating, right? So let's go into our coin sprite and go into the coin sprite sheet And instead of picking coin 01 as the default, let's pick coin 10. And I'm going to drag my coin 10 across into the sprite renderer's position. Now if you notice, it's kind of flat. This is coin 10. So this is a great way to create our own little collider. Right? So I'm going to add a new component, which is a collider. I need that too, right? If I'm going to make it collide at all. Here's my physics 2D. I'm going to add a circle collider. And if you notice, it's exactly almost right around the coin, right? Because it's a circle, it's a perfect kind of collider. I could even reduce my radius just a little bit, because right now my radius is 20. If I wanted to bring it in a little bit, I can make it 19, right? So it's a little tighter, right? So there's my circle collider. And I'm going to save. So I've added my circle collider to my coin and also a rigid body 2D. Now we noticed last time that, you know what, my gravity scale is messed up. So I have to add the same gravity scale that I did for my player, and I made it 200. So let's change that. 200. Okay, cool. I already know. I know there's going to be issues, guys. All right, just bear with me. I know there's going to be issues. Let's see what happens when I scroll out. I'm going to get the player to collide with my coin and then see what we get. Right? Let's check this out. So boom. Oh, what happened to my player? And look at my coin. It's like flipping out. Right? Let's try that again. Right? How come it did that? And do I want that effect? Boom. Oh man, my player fell on his face, and then my coin fell off in a weird way. Well, there's a couple things. Remember, both my hero and my coin, right, have my rotation unlocked, so I can rotate in addition to doing everything else it does, right? So I don't want my hero to rotate. I want it to kind of stay like this. I don't want him to fall over on his face, at least not for now, right? And I definitely don't want that for the coin. So let's do a multiple select. I'm going to select my hero, and I'm going to shift select my coin. So now I can hit both of them at once. And I'm going to click on the freeze rotation on the Z-axis. All right, so now my constraint in the rigid body 2D, both of them have a rigid body 2D. I'm just going to, freeze the rotation on the Z-axis. All right, let's check this out and see what it does now. So now, boom, my hero's on top of the coin, right? But that's not what I want, right? I want when the hero hits the coin, for the coin to make a sound, like doo-doo, right? One of those. And I also want the coin to disappear. All right? So let's write a simple script for that to happen, right? So this is where the scripts come in. I'm going to stop debugging. And if you notice here, I want so that the coin, when the coin touches with the player himself, right? The coin touches the player, it disappears. Okay, cool. Two things. The player is tagged as a player. This is good. The coin untagged. Probably want to change that, right? So let's add a new coin and add a new tag. And I'm going to add a tag called coin, right? You guys should know how to do this already. Nothing new. And I'm clicking on the coin, and I'm pulling down the new tag, coin. So now my coin is tagged as a coin. I'm going to save everything. Everything I want to do is I'm going to add a script by itself. You notice my scripts folder is now empty, but I want a script tag to be added to the coin. So a couple ways I could do that. One way is I could add component, and we've done that many times. But let's add it the other way. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to create a new C# script, and we're going to call this coin controller. So my coin controller script. I'm going to double click to pull up mono-develop. Right? Here's my mono-develop. Remember, we're working on one prefab at a time. I'm doing the coin first because it shows us how to do animation, and then we're going to go back to the player and some player movement today as well. All right, so this is cool. I've got some stuff in here, void start and void update. This is okay, but what I need is an on collision 2D enter, right? Or enter 2D. Let's check this out. So let's write this in. So void on collision enter 2D, right? And remember, when I'm doing a on collision enter 2D, I'm probably going to need some kind of object to speak to the collision, right? And if I'm not wrong, it's a collision 2D object that I need, right? I'm not wrong. Yeah, so here we're going to talk to a collision 2D object. And we're going to call this object other, we're going to call it collider, other collider, whatever the other one we're speaking to is. Okay, there we go. So there's the first thing we want to put in there. So I'm going to say this. When the coin, this is my effect, when the coin connects with the player, it's going to disappear. It's going to be destroyed, right? Now, I want to make a sound, And if the coin destroys itself, it can never make a sound. So the sound should be attached to the player, not to the coin, right? Now there's different ways to do this. You can affect this way by having a different collider, script, and so on. We're going to keep it simple this time around. So I'm going to say if, here's a new script, other collider, right? Dot game object. And here's a new tag that I'm going to use, compare tag, right? Compare tag, and I'm going to mention player, which is like saying if other collider.gameObject.tag is double equal to player, same thing, right? But apparently this is a little bit more additionally performant if you do it this way, right? If other collider.gameObject.compare tag player, if that's true, then what do I want to do? I want to destroy myself, right? So I want to say destroy, and then game object. So if I collide with the player, I want to go away. All right, let's add this script now. Now that it's written, I'm going to save. I'm going to add this script to my coin object. Now the way I did it last time was to, again, I added it here, but we're just going to drag and drop. Let me show you how that's done. So I'm going to take my coin controller script, and I'm just going to drag it right over here onto the add component where it turns into a plus, and then let go. It adds the script onto my coin. Okay, so if everything works well, when my player falls on top of my coin, it should go bye-bye. It should disappear. Let's check this out. So boom, okay, it's gone. So my coin just disappeared, right? My player landed on top of my coin. All right, good. Now what I want to do is when my player touches my coin, not only will it disappear, but I want it to make a noise, right? I want to make that noise that I have here in my sounds. If I go to sounds and I click on coin, and if I press play, then you'll hear this. Yeah, one more time. Okay, one more for posterity. Right? Okay, that's the sound, right? Very simple sound you're going to hear, that little boop boop, you know, that sound. And it's going to be played every time you hit the coin. I can't put it on top of my coin because if I put it there, my coin will destroy itself and never play that sound like we did with Mail Pilot. So I need to put it somewhere else. The player is a good spot, right, for now. Let's go to my hero. And I'm going to just kind of, you know, shadow these down a little bit. And I'm going to add a new component, right? Actually, there's a couple ways to do this. One way is to add a component audio source, or the other one is to take my coin sound, take a look over here, sound, and just drag it over here. That's adding the audio source and assigning it coin. Now, one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to play on awake. Play on awake means as soon as the hero is created, it's going to play that sound. I don't want that, so turn it off. So now it's part of my my hero. It exists. I can access it. It's part of my hero audio source. I need to add another script now to control my hero and control what happens to my coin. Now, before I had broken this script out into two scripts. I had a hero controller and a hero collider script, or a player collider. I'm going to make it one. So I'm going to go to my scripts and do the new way that I was doing it. Right-click, create, C# script. And this time I'm going to call this thing a player collider, a player controller. I could have called it hero controller too. I'm going to double-click on this thing, right? Now there's a couple things I want to do with my player controller script, right? As we're starting off. And one thing I want to do is create a reference to my audio source. If I want to make my audio source, a reference to my audio source, if I want to drag and drop it, I'm going to make it public, right? But here, I just want to reference the audio source that's part of the player object itself. So it's okay to make it private. So let's do that. So I'll say up here, I'll call this, you know, private instance variables as an annotation, and just add in some comments here. And in my private instance variables, what I want to do, I want to create a new private instance variable called, it's going to be private. It's going to be of type audio source. So we did last time we did this with Mail Pilot. But I want to make it an audio source array, right? Right now we only have one audio source. I'm going to make it an array of audio sources. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to use underscore for my best practice. I'm using my convention. For all private variables, I'm using the underscore first, and then using audio sources as the name of my variable, right? So private audio source array of audio sources, right? Now I don't have any, there's no reference right now. I have to create that reference. So let's do that in start. So when my object is instantiated, I want to make that reference. So let's do that. So inside start, I'm going to say this dot underscore audio sources, right? So referencing this object right here is equal to game object dot get components get components of type audio source, right? And I want you to assign each and every component to the audio sources array. I only have one right now, right? So I only have one single element in my array in this particular case, right? Well, that's good, but I want a friendly name to reference my array, my audio source that I want to get to. So let's create another audio source that's private. So I'm going to say private, right? Audio source. It's a single audio source this time, right? And I'm going to use underscore, and it's going to be called the coin sound, right? That's what the coin sound is going to be called. It's an audio source, type of audio source. It's going to be my coin sound. And now here in my start, I'm going to say this dot underscore coin sound, right, is equal to this dot underscore audio sources 0, right? So what I'm still looking at, take the first audio source, I know it's the coin sound audio source, and make a reference to it in this coin sound private variable. Okay, cool. So now I've got a reference to my audio source I want to play, and on collision enter 2D, I want to play the sound whenever I collide with a coin. So I've almost got the exact same script here. Look, here's my on collision enter 2D for my coin. I could simply copy this one, and you're going to say, copying means you need to use something else, Tom, because you're copying script. Yes and no. But let's just put this down here for a second and right-click and paste, right? And instead of comparing the tag to a player, we compare it to a coin. And instead of destroying the object, which we already do, right? We don't want to destroy the object. We want to play the audio clip. So we're going to say this dot underscore coin sound dot play. Now this is all review from our mail pilot, right? We've done this before. All I'm doing is I'm breaking out the separations here. Now normally my on collision enter 2D, because it's a collider of some side or some kind of collision script, I'm probably better off putting that in a player collider script, separate all my collisions in one script that's separate, right? But for now we don't have very many, so let's leave it as is. We can always transfer it later. Okay, so we've got my player controller, right? But I need to add it to my player because I haven't done that yet. I've just left it separate. So if I click on my hero and I look at, I can certainly add it the other way, but I want to drag and drop it just to show you that we can do that over and over again, just different ways of doing the same thing. So drag and drop until you see the green plus. And when we do that, it adds my player controller script onto my player. Now, if I land on it, it should make that noise, whoop, and then the coin should disappear. Let's try it out. Right? It's gone. So that's good. All right, I've almost got everything I need from my coin, right? I've got my my coin controller, I've got my circle collider, I've got my rigid body 2D, so it acts like a thing. It means it can roll off if it gets hit, right? And my player, when my player collides with it, it kind of does all the things it needs to do. So I think this is a good place to create my coin as a prefab. So I'm going to take my coin, remember how we do prefabs, and drag and drop it into the prefabs folder. When I do that, my coin turns blue. I have this little thing that shows me that it's a prefab, which is now like a template. And if I get rid of my coin, that's okay. I can delete my coin, right? And I still have my prefab. And from my prefabs, I can add as many coins in here as I want. Let's test that out. So I'm going to add one coin, two coins, 3 coins. Now they're not showing up because they're all on top of each other. So let's go to coin 1 and drag it to the left. And here's coin 2, and let's drag it to the right. And we'll bring these up in different positions, right, just to make them more interesting. Here, and maybe not even make him so well. He'll hit this one. Okay, so let's try this out. So 3 coins, and they're all going to be independent of each other, right? And because they're a prefab, I can make as many of these coins as I want. Okay, cool. So I've got a couple of things going on here with the coins. I want to get rid of them because they're just in my way right now. I've created my prefab. This is the mechanic for me making points for the game, right? So I'm going to kind of kill these. If I kill these coins, right? Let's kill the coins. Let me just delete. I still have them in my prefab. Okay, so I can always bring them back. Let me save the scene, and I think this is a great breaking point. It's 7:28. Let's take a 5-minute break. I'm going to update GitHub for you, so you'll have my coin prefab as well as my 2 scripts, right? And then you can certainly download that option from there, or just go into the scripts. If you're working with me, you can go into the scripts. If I was going too fast, and grab those 2 little scripts that I wrote and copy them and paste them into your project. So I'm gonna just, if you want to take a 5-minute break, I'm going to pause the recording, and we'll go from there.